Hello, welcome to the Developing Your Football World podcast. My guest today is Lloyd Owers. Lloyd has recently landed a dream role as Technical Director for the Marshall Islands. Learn all about the project and football in the Pacific Island nation and what the role entails. Enjoy. Lloyd, thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And thank you for the offer to come on the show.
No, I'm glad that we can do this because what you're up to is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to dive straight on into this. So, what position have you recently acquired?
So, yeah, it's like you said, it's very unique, very random, but I'm the technical director for the Marshall Islands, a tiny little country in the Pacific Ocean.
At what point in your life did you ever think that would happen?
Yeah, probably never. I think I've always been a bit of a dreamer. I've always been a bit of an adventurist, and I'd like a challenge, and I like to travel where possible. But I think the opportunity to combine football and maybe the Pacific Ocean, yeah, I don't think I could have dreamt of that one.
When you tell family and friends about this, what's their reaction?
Yeah, it's a bit mixed, to be honest. I mean, some people were why, some people were how, some people are like, oh, that's really good, like, keep me posted and send me links and how can I help. So and I think everyone's on board now. It's just that initial shock factor of, yeah, well, where is it?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a question we're going to get a lot. So let's look at that. Firstly, where is it?
Yeah, so it's a tiny little island in the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and Australia.
And you said it's got a population of about 62,000.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What, 32 hours to get there?
Yeah. So the actual population of the island, or in the nations, I should say, across the islands, are 62,000. And then if you consider that compared to some of the US connections that they have, and the one state, for example, in Arkansas, has 30,000 Marshallese citizens alone. It's pretty incredible that, 30,000 in one state in the US, and there's only 62,000 across the whole of the actual country itself. So it's a big challenge in terms of the numbers, because you might have 62,000, but out of that, who's eligible to play the sport in general, especially at levels that the FA want to aspire to be at.
We'll go down that route a bit later on about how you are able to recruit and try and connect with a lot of those guys. But firstly, tell us about the role itself. As technical director, what is it that you have to do?
So thankfully, I have been tasked with just driving the project. So I have been tasked with overseeing the structure from schools through to the national team. So working out a plan initially of what we do and how we do it, and it's come to the conclusion really that first stage is to go with the school setup, because those children in the schools are the ones that are driving this. They're the ones that want to be playing. So it's working out how we do that. So I've created a school curriculum that is being rolled out in schools across the country for all levels and from 4 upwards. And then that links into the youth structure, which is going to be based across predominantly one island, which is the main island in Majuro. And then, so that's working from the bottom up. And then from the top down, it's working with initially a men's national team. And there are plans for female games to be really improved and developed across over time. But initially with the men's national team, and then working down, meeting in the middle with those aspects. So but yeah, the first part is that school curriculum, which is being rolled out, and then now it's a case of pushing that national team awareness, I guess.
Sorry if I look like I'm zoning out, because this is sounds like a dream job, and I am already fantasizing on being able to do something similar. And I'm sure a lot of people are the same thing. Oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds
definitely unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly brilliant. So let me try and get back on track and shut up and get that so people can learn about it, because it almost sounds too good to be true in a lot of ways. So the length of the project is for an initial 2 years, and then potentially further if all goes well. And you mentioned that there's a lot of ambition. So Marshall Islands doesn't yet have OFC or FIFA membership, is that right?
Yeah, so I think one of the aspects that drew me to the position in the first place was after I started speaking to the FA president, it was a case of, yeah, these guys really want to push on. They don't want to just sit around and be idle and play really infrequent games. They don't want to just play their neighbours. They want to be formalised, have a real structure, and initially be OFC members in Oceania, but also ultimately they want to be FIFA members. They want to be able to drive the game and be a part of the whole worldwide football structure.
What is needed then to get to OFC and FIFA membership?
We need an identity, we need a structure in place, because at the moment there's very little structure at all. It's a lot of, people play the game, but informally. There are no there are almost teams because of communities and stuff like that, but there's no real structure to it. There's no club that is formalized. So it's creating that league structure as well, and that's part of my role, to work with the FA to how we do that. So creating a league structure and putting that in place. Once we've got that in place, we can then approach IFC now, because they'll be able to help and raise an awareness, but as well as funding to help grow the game. But yeah, if we've got an identity, we've got a structure in place, then it helps massively in terms of being able to approach them and say, this is who we are, this is what we've got. Please, can you help us now and see what we can do to develop it?
Regarding the actual attitude or appetite for football, you said it's driven by the kids, and you're trying to get it into a lot of the schools. Now, being the complete opposite side of the world from Europe and your big five leagues, I'm guessing that with the time zone, they're probably not able to watch a whole lot of football.
No, I mean, that's part of the reason as to why it's not really been pushed over the last few years or whatever, because it's very heavily US influenced. There's historically a lot between the Marshall Islands and the US, dates back to around like World War II. And it still now means that the US have a really large military base on one of the atolls, one of the islands in the Marshall Islands. And then that comes with the US government providing the Marshall Islands government each year with payment. But that also then links to a free movement between Marshallese and US citizens between countries. And because of that, it's really heavily influenced on the culture of the Marshall Islands. There's a lot of basketball, a lot of baseball, individual sports, and that's what they watch as well if they're watching sports as well as playing it. But because the game's growing in the States in terms of football, soccer, they are also then, it is then naturally growing in the Marshall Islands as well. And because the kids are the ones that are seeing it and having the opportunity to try it in schools really loosely, they're then turning around to parents and teachers and saying, well, we want to play football. And that's spiraled on because there's groups of teenagers that want to play it. There are pockets of adults that do play it and get together to play. But then you've also got people that connect with it from neighbouring islands. So like Solomon Islands, for example, where the board members of the FA in Marshall Islands is formed by a couple of Solomon Islands citizens as well. So they are helping to drive the game because they realise there is a real need for it and a want for it from the youth, as well as some adults that are playing at that level or wanting to play at that level, I should say.
What can be done to drive the interest? Is it just a matter of getting more people playing, providing more facilities, or is it something culturally that you need to do to affect these people?
I think in terms of the culture, because like I said, it's growing naturally, it's growing case by case, day by day, and that's just naturally happening. But in terms of how people can support it, or how we can support them as well, is just actually facilitating what they want to be doing. Because there's no structure at the moment, and even with a lack of equipment, and their opportunities to play are limited anyway. So, for example, in terms of the schools, the reason they haven't done too much with it is because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to start it. Once it's started, they're okay, but it's starting it. So that's why my school curriculum's coming in place, and that's being rolled out so that they can have a bit of a basis of, okay, we've got some ideas of what we can do, what we're doing, and why we're doing it, and then we build from there. In terms of the adult section, that's where the league structure comes in, because once we've got people that can put in place and facilitate games, brilliant, they can go and play, and they can regularly play against people that are organised rather than just, shall we do it today? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go and play. They've got something to actually work with and work towards. But then in terms of facilities, that will come down to like the national stadium being completed. which was initially going to be July because they are hosting the Micronesian Games, but it looks like the stadium's going to be completed a lot sooner than that. So that's where the league will be based, because it's out of one centre, almost like Gibraltar style. But if you link it to a neighbouring island, Tuvalu do it, for example, where they have all the games in one stadium. But then also there are local parks, there are local venues that children can play. But in terms of sizing, it's a little bit limited, which is going to affect the culture of, or the identity of how we play. So the youth structure is going to be very predominantly small-sided based because of the lack of venue sizes available.
A lot of people want to know this because you think in Pacific Island football, it sounds like a paradise. You're doing the majority of this remotely, but there's an opportunity for you to actually go there and do a lot of this in person. Yeah, so
it will come down to funding, and as we said in like a pre-chat, until we get OFC funding, for example, where there is an easy sort of backup. Okay, we can afford to do this, this, and this because we have that part, we have that security, we have that safety. Until we get any form of membership, we are solely reliant on fundraising and sponsorship. So a lot of the structure is being based on me creating it for locals to deliver it in case I can't get there, because it is expensive to get to the Marshall Islands. So in terms of structures for it, I plan to go out in July, but if there's an opportunity to go out sooner, March, April time, then I will, because there is a real need to go out and actually meet the people that are going to be rolling out the school curriculum, for example. The locals that want to be involved in the youth structure, they need to have coach education workshops delivered to them. So if there's an opportunity to go out in March, April, May time, then I will, but if not, it'll be July.
So what are your roles and responsibilities? Because you've mentioned you're creating a curriculum, you're trying to get the game into schools. There's the development of leagues, development of facilities, coach education. It sounds like there's a lot to be done.
It's a widespread role, definitely. I mean, included in that, the other aspect that I've been working on at the same time, like I said, to work bottom up with the schools and youth, and then work from the top down with the men's national team. So part of that is initially working on the playing identity and how we approach it as a nation. So, from talking to the FA staff and then spiraling on to conversations with some locals from it, it's a very community-based feel to the area, to the nation itself. So including, that incorporating that community feel, that we stick together feel, that as part of the playing identity. And that's part of my role, to write out a style for the nation, but link it to the nation's principles as well. But then when you mention all those other aspects, like the league structure, for example, at some point, we will branch out. We'll need people. We'll need someone that can come in and do referee education, or officials education, I should say. We'll need people that will want to be part of the league forming. So, we'll need someone to help write the rule book. We'll need people to help manage it, and that will sometimes come down to locals, because they'll need to be there on a daily basis or a game basis. But we will need to spiral that up at some point, because at the moment it is just myself technically, and then two other guys that one's looking after media and communications, and the other looks after fundraising and sponsorship. And that's quite a lot of tasks for three of us at the moment.
Oh yeah, I can see everything I've got written out in front of me. It's a hell of a lot for one person, and you're doing this in addition to other coaching roles, aren't you?
So the coaching roles have now sort of really dropped off because of this. Really, this is my main football commitment, but I do work as a teacher as well, so it is alongside another commitment, at least, anyway.
Burning the candle at both ends.
Definitely.
People in football are these days. Now, you've mentioned culture a couple of times, that it's very heavily influenced by the United States because of their links, because of the idea of citizenship is reciprocal, how they would go across countries. With it being so community-based, do you think that makes it easier to generate interest in teams, in clubs, in competitions? Is there a lot of almost like national pride? So you're thinking of Micronesian Games. Is it easy to get people excited? Or is there
Yeah, I mean, like I said, through discussions with the FA staff, like the board, for example, and in locals across social media platforms that we have had so far, it's quite clear to see that they want something in place. And same again, it links to they didn't know how to do it or what to do, where to start. So, and they're like when you link back to you just said about national pride, that's what it is. It's they have an Olympic committee, they go to the Olympics, and it might be with a very small amount of athletes, but they go there. And we're not setting out to be world beaters. We're setting out to be providing opportunities for citizens to represent their country and wear the nation's flag. They're having that opportunity to be part of and represent their country on a worldwide stage because they are proud and they just want another sport that they can show that off.
You mentioned that with a population of 62,000 in the Marshall Islands, that there's a huge diaspora, particularly in the US. Did you say you've got 30,000 alone in Arkansas?
Yes, there's 30,000 in Arkansas, and then there's a few other thousand that are obviously dotted around different states as well. But that could also then link into like player recruitment, for example, because when we do get to the stage we're looking at player eligibility, obviously we're going to look predominantly inland, onshore, or inshore for those guys that are in the Marshall Islands. But with such a strong connection to the US, such a strong number of citizens there, is naturally going to be some players, or you'd hope. So it could be almost that we have, especially until we get funding, when it becomes a little bit easier to get people across. But it could also be initially that we have a hub. So there might almost be an Arkansas hub, and that's where we get players to go out to the Marshall Islands that are local, and we also have players that are in Arkansas, wherever it may be in the US. And then obviously they can then be part of that Explorer team in effect. And then when we get to the stage of we're choosing national squads and finalising it down to a squad of 20, 30 players, then those better, stronger players that are US based can go across. But that might be, it is going to be an approach that we look at initially as well. So it's easier to get one person to go out to both places than it is to get 20 people to go across to the Marshall Islands initially with limited funding.
Yeah. That makes sense. Just on the horizon, you've got the Micronesian Games.
Yeah.
Tell us about that for people that would be unaware.
It's almost a mini Olympics for the Micronesian region. So unfortunately, there's no football this year, where there usually would be. But there's athletic events and lots of different individual based sports that are going to be there, and the Marshall Islands are hosting it. It was meant to be last year, and then it was delayed with delayed COVID restrictions, but also national stadium and stuff like it's being built. So it's going to be this July. But you have neighbouring countries. You have like Guam, for example, where in terms of linking it to football again, a recognised FIFA member. So it is a shame that there's no football this year on there, but it's an opportunity to connect with those fellow regions, because it could also be an extra connection, I guess, and partnership opportunities for us.
I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will be enamoured with the story, and that will all become Marshall Islands fans. So who do we hate then? Who are the rivals? When the World Cup qualifiers come around and you've got the OFC membership, which is the big game that we look out for, and that we're going to sing horrible songs about the opponent?
I mean, one thing that I have learned quite quickly just through discussions is they're quite a friendly people. So I don't know if there's a hatred towards another nation, but I mean, you've got to look at teams like Fiji and the Samoan, American Samoa, for example, Nauru, and all those different sort of nations that, even if they're not FIFA members at the moment, they would be games that you would look at. Things like Tuvalu, who are not FIFA, but they are OFC affiliate members. So they're not a full member, but they are still somewhere where we would aspire to be. So they would be the initial rivalry, I assume, because they're where we are. They are where we want to be eventually.
It needs to have a blossoming football hooligan culture. So if you need to get that developed, just let us know. We'll advertise on the site.
We'll see who gains some interest on that one.
Yeah, see if we can get some internships or some exchange programs going on.
Yeah, they'd be very pleased with that one.
Yeah. So back to the serious matters, because it does sound like a an absolute dream. To try and visualize this for a lot of people, you mentioned before the documentary Next Goal Wins, and
Yeah.
that there's some similarities with that story, because this would be hard to imagine. So hopefully a fair few people have actually seen that documentary. If you don't know, it's Thomas Rongan goes over to American Samoa and tries to get them to win a game.
Basically, yeah, and does really well with it, actually.
Yeah, lofty ambitions, which I'm experiencing at the moment with a couple of my teams. Winning a game is a little bit beyond us, but we'll get there. What are the ambitions for the Marshall Islands?
What are the ambitions for the Marshall Islands? So to create an awareness of not only just the game, but also the nation, because I've been asked it myself. Yeah, why, where, how, where is it? It's not a nation that you could instantly pinpoint on a map. So creating awareness of that. There is also a massive climate change risk or actual situation in the Marshall Islands, where by 2050, a lot of the atolls will be submerged and unfortunately won't be around. But that doesn't mean that there will be no Marshall Islands, because fortunately, there are things being put in place, especially on the bigger islands like Majuro, the capital where the national stadium is going to be, for example. But there's also a lot of support from neighbouring nations. So Fiji, for example, offering land and relocation packages to Marshallese citizens. So there will still be a nation. And it's still obviously that links probably even more so into their national pride, because the history massively evolves by that point. So yes, creating awareness of the nation, creating awareness of the game, grow the game, and just having that opportunity to be part of the worldwide stage in a different area. And I think the fact that they are the last nation on earth to have a football team now is going to be hopefully a key in getting a few new supporters.
What an achievement that would be, and can you imagine a couple of years down the line being Thomas Rongan after that first win, after establishing a team, getting to a tournament, getting OFC membership, and that would be.
I think that's it. Yeah, it's small goals, like you said, winning a game, but scoring your first goal. Like whoever scores the first goal for the country, they're going to go down in history. It's that first starting 11 is going to go down in history. It's all those little key moments where you have to start small and set realistic targets, and hopefully we get there. Well, we will get there. It's just a case of don't know how long yet.
Well, setting realistic targets. Do you have a kit yet? Is there an identity? Are there colours?
I can tell you the kit will be based on the flag, which is blue, white, and orange. Some people have naturally taken it upon themselves on social media at the moment to do kit designs in concept kits. There's a lot circulating, and like I said, the social media presence and just general media presence has been fantastic and really boomed quite quickly, a lot bigger than we thought. But yeah, that's led to people now sort of taking it into their own matters to design as a kit. And there is nothing as of yet. There is no kit. There is no formal identity in terms of that aspect. We are waiting because we've had a few people contact, like kit manufacturers, for example, and suppliers that want to be a part of it, which is fantastic. But we're not committing to anyone just yet, because we need to make sure it's the right feel, the right fit, the right everything for the country. But yeah, if people want to get involved in that and cast their eye over some of the designs that people have put up so far, then they're more than welcome.
I'm partial to some blue and white hearts myself, and I would.
Some of the designs are fantastic. So the flag has like a sash that goes across it, and the kits, they've been quite good. I'll let you have a little look to see, but some really good ones out there.
Yeah, I'd be keen to have a look, actually. Okay, going back to the climate change for a second, as you mentioned 2050, I think that sounds really, really far away, but it's only 27 years.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately, yeah.
A lot of people listening will be close to that age, where I think in one of your lifetimes, these
might be a nation,
you're real danger of losing significant land in a country. And how do you manage that? How do you work against that?
I mean, for me, I guess that's something that I can't really answer too closely, just because it is out of my control. It is out of my remit. It's really definitely out of my knowledge base. But from what I do know, yeah, there is a lot going into it in terms of, like, for example, the National Stadium is being built on, like, certain sides of the sea facing sides of the stadium are being sea barrier protected with whatever infrastructure that is to help against it. And it might be a case of there might be certain areas of that main island being affected, but definitely not as significantly affected as some of these smaller islands, which will unfortunately not be there.
That's something I think a lot of us will struggle to be able to relate to or comprehend.
Yeah.
That's the thing about a lot of these issues. If it's far away, you struggle to really be able to understand it or do anything.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me actually as well. You said earlier about like connections and what have you, and I think this has happened really, really quickly. You know, it's come around in like 6 weeks or so for me, and that's it. That's where we're up to at the moment. But just speaking to people that do live there and realizing that, yeah, where they live is going to be affected in some way. It's just that's the reality of it, isn't it?
So let's go back to the start. How did you get this opportunity in the first place?
Yeah, so I finished a master's degree in coaching and realized that, all right, I'm going to miss writing. I really enjoyed writing, and I know some people can't grasp that. I probably wouldn't have even before I started it or when I was doing it, but I didn't realize how much I'd miss it. So when I stopped it, I wanted to continue in some way, and I started like a blog site with weekly content and really enjoyed that process still. And then one aspect of it is as a Q&A that put me in touch with two members of the Samoa national team, and just discussions with those guys really took off. It was a really highly read Q&A, but also that then spiraled off into networking to different people around the world because of it. And one of who was Shem Levi, and we got talking, who is the FA president of the Marshall Islands. A few discussions later, because they're 12 hours ahead, so it had to be text, WhatsApps, emails, and then voice notes really. And it was very informal. Then it became formal with he asked me to put together a proposal of how I would help the nation, what I would do, how I would structure it, short, medium, long-term goals for it, and then also apply my own philosophy and style to it. And then he quite liked it, fortunately, and then it ended up with me being offered the role as a technical director.
So a lot of that, there's messages there that can be taken away for a lot of coaches who are listening, is that making connections online is key today.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it helps with your career advancement, and so your writing that you're doing, you've interviewed quite a few coaches, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
Find this.
What was that last one? Sorry.
Where can people find this? How can they read your articles?
So I promote it heavily over my social media connections, over Twitter, which is just my name, basically, Lloyd Owers. But also the blog site is coachdevelopment.uk. And yeah, it just has weekly session plans, Q&As with coaches around the world, and then some articles that are posted on there as well.
What I really want to stress here is, for anyone who's looking to advance their career, is your social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, are huge for connecting with other coaches and what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it started years ago. My initial sort of interaction with Twitter came years ago. And the biggest impact on my coaching and me as a person was Canada. And like even now, I love the place. My wife and I got married there. I've worked there as a consultant for, I don't know, 5-6 times for a good spell of time, a month here and there, 6 weeks here and there. With initially a guy that I made a connection with who, just an informal tweet that I put out. I've got the summer off. This was like 2011. I think I've got the summer 2012 off. Is anyone offering any work abroad? And a guy called Raheem Mohammed came back to me in Canada and offered me a chance to go out there. And we ended up being, groomsmen and each other's weddings, and we're still good friends now. We'll speak most daily. It's incredible that it came about personally and professionally, and that had a massive impact on me as a person, but also me as a coach. And that's our long-term ambition. So for my wife and I, like to go out to move to Canada. That's our long-term ambition, for me to work in football there and us to live out there, and that's the long-term aim. But I think that would never have happened without a social media presence, because I would have never have gone, or I'd never have put myself into a position to go.
It becomes almost like a repertoire of the things that you can do. So you showcase your capabilities as a coach. You mentioned session plans, particularly in your case, it'd be writing ability as well. It shows a level of critical thinking, and the fact that also you're putting in a lot of spare time to do these things. You're not just turning up to your session, coaching, going home. You're very, very serious when you're coaching. So I advocate social media presence. If you want to have an account where you just talk bollocks with your mates, then go and make one of those. But have a coaching account too, where you can interact with serious coaches from all around the world. Because
100%. I mean, I get stick for it all the time, like from friends of mine, like, you're so busy, and what are you doing? Like, but it's all like fun natured, because one of them, he's probably the biggest critic, is one of my best friends, and he's one of the ones that's probably inspired 3 or 4 of my session plans on there, because he's asked for them for his team that he manages. So it's like, it's always harmless fun. But I think at the same time, like you said, you have to, if you want to do something, you've got to do it properly. And I've done things in the past in terms of football where I've probably not sold myself the best, because I've done a lot for free when I probably should have charged at that time. And not saying I do it for a monetary gain, but I think you can sometimes fall into a trap where you do too much. So now I've started to learn, you have to maybe not be niche, but you have to know your worth a little bit.
Yeah, when it comes to careers, there's a couple of phrases that I like. What's your unique selling point? Why should a club or an organisation hire you over someone else? What sets you apart? So if there's a job going and it's asking for, let's say, B license and youth module 3, they're going to get 100 applicants that have a B license and
yeah.
Why you and not them? And what you've done here is you've reached out to people, you've made that connection, so they'll know, all right, Lloyd ticks the same box as everyone else, but I know Lloyd. Lloyd's a top coach. He's very, very considerate about his coaching, very, very well driven. I know that because I've seen him online. I know that because I've interacted with him.
I think sometimes as well, though, like, sorry to cut you off, but I think sometimes there's, like, it comes down to that just being a good human as well, because I think there's a lot of people that connect with people for the sake of connecting with someone. So like you said, actually, they know them. But I try to be a nice person and try to communicate as well as I can, because I think there's a lot of times where if I get help from someone, I know that there's ways that I can help them as well, because I'd like it to be both ways. I don't want to use someone for using them for the sake of something. I want to be actually helpful, and I don't want to be doing it for the sake of doing it. I want to actually help. So I think sometimes, like, that's why the blog site started, because 1, I enjoyed writing, but 2, I enjoyed writing about ways I could help people. And even if it's a case of, one person learns one thing, I've done a job. So if I put a session plan out and 50 people look at it and 1 person likes it, 49 hate it, I've affected 1 person in a good way. So it's like, I've helped someone. So hopefully there's a little bit of that somewhere.
No, that's precisely it. So the other thing is in what way can you make your dent in the universe? In what way will a project or something outlive you? Can you give something to the world that will be there without you, and that people benefit long term because of the work that you've done? And the phrase being plant seeds for trees whose shade will never stand. I like that one a lot. And not to get too philosophical and destroy anyone, ruin anyone's day with these morbid thoughts, but a school of thought that I like is when does a person actually die? Is it when you take your last breath? Is it when your heart has its last beat? And the idea being that a person truly dies when we stop remembering them. So think of everyone you know now.
Yeah,
If
the
you die
legacy.
when you're 90, you'll know toddlers, and then they will go and live to be 70, 80, 90, and they will pass on stories to the next generation
Mm.
about you. So realistically, people will still think and talk about you 100 or 200 years after you're dead.
Mm.
And so that's when you truly die. So in that time, what effect can you have on the world, of the universe, on your little corner of time and space to make things better for other people? And I suppose with this project, this is what you're doing right now, because anyone can get a job at an academy, at a pro club, win a few trophies and have a good time. But what you're
Yeah.
doing now is actually helping a nation establish something fantastic, which will hopefully, it's going to outlive you as well, because at some point you're going to move on from the role. At some point you're going to retire and hopefully enjoy your last few years and look back on a successful career in football. But this will go beyond you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm 33, and I'm glad you just wished my life away. But but yeah, it's I know what you mean. I mean, for me, it's similarities to a conversation I had. I was literally walking the dogs, and I said, I want to have an impact on sport. And I remember saying it because, and this was at the time, I didn't have the blog. I just finished the master. I wanted to do something else, and I didn't know what to do. And I was thinking, I want to do something. I had a few ideas popping around, didn't really know what to do with it. But now with this project, like you said, it's massive, and I hope it's a long-term project for myself. But even if it doesn't turn out to be 2 years done, we'd have done enough in that 2 years to have an impact for whoever then takes it on in the future. And that then starts with the guys that took it over in the first place. And yeah, not doing it for that selfish reason. I hadn't really thought of it until you just said, actually. But it's a massive, it's a key point, isn't it? It is a long-lasting legacy, hopefully.
So we talked before about ambitions of the federation itself.
Yeah.
What do they call themselves, by the way? Is it Marshall Islands FA?
It's the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, which is because of the US connections. A lot of the countries in the region are football, not soccer, but because of the very heavy US influence, it's understandably soccer.
Well, as long as
the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation.
As long as when they event to the World Cup, they don't have fans being corny and chanting, "It's soccer, not football." And yeah, that's that underdeveloped American sense of humor there. Well done, guys. You got it there, owned. So we talked about the ambitions for the federation, but what are the ambitions for you? What does success look like from your point of view? What impact do you want to have?
I would like to see, obviously, my school curriculum's being rolled out, so seeing the benefits of that and getting more people playing. And a big one for me is to see the playing identity that I've written for the national team being put into practice. So I had a friend that joked to me, I can't wait to see them, see the first game, but I wouldn't be surprised if you lose. And I was like, probably is likely. But the thing is, is having that impact on the nation itself. And I think for me, that's a main task. It's seeing my plans then put into practice on a worldwide stage. And I would never have thought I'd have said that. So that's a win already for me.
Yeah, when you talk to people that have got jobs like this and are kind of living the dream, to an extent, it does sound like Football Manager or fantasy football. Right?
Yeah.
This is too good to be true. But this is amazing. How are you doing this? So,
I mean, the thing for me as well, like I'm sat there sometimes, like it's 9 o'clock at night, and I'm sat there working still because we've worked in the day, and then I'm working in the evening doing this, or I'm vice versa. I'm doing something in the morning for this, and then because I've left certain things, my other role, that I'm then doing that in the evening. So it can turn into long days. But then I think that's part of the love of the game, isn't it? We all do certain things. If you like something, you do it more. And especially with football, it seems to be one of those things, like if you enjoy it, you do it more. So all those plans and all the content creation we're doing is for a good reason. So it might make the days long now, but it's definitely worthwhile in the end.
So that was going to be my next question. Essentially, how much stress, how much work is associated with this? How much headspace do you actually get to switch off?
I struggle switching off anyway. I'm a light sleeper by nature. I have a son who's a light sleeper by nature. So we get a little rest between us. And and I like to be busy. I can't sit around. So for me, it doesn't cause stress. It's just an extra task that I like to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say it's stress. I would just say it's definitely a full-time commitment. But then also there's you know, the guys that are doing the media side and the fundraising and sponsorship and all those communications, we're talking on WhatsApp and calls and whatever. We're talking from 7 in the morning till 9 at night, you know, every day. We are all day, every day bouncing ideas, and most of the time it doesn't happen because it's far-fetched or can't be done. But there's always something going off in the group chat because we are just spiraling ideas, and that's probably the most consuming bit. And it's fun because luckily we'll get on. So we've all quite clicked quite quickly.
It's one of those things where I think that in order to achieve success, you have to be obsessed with it, and that it then becomes very hard to switch off because this is
it can become an obsession, definitely.
So do you find yourself almost daydreaming about things that you can do and about, so you're fantasizing, or down the line, it'd be really good if we can do this?
Oh, honestly, my mind spirals all the time. Like before we started getting anything in place and social media went live, I was probably annoying the other two guys quite a lot because my mind was going at 100 miles an hour, like with about 5 million different thoughts. And I'd like message it, and then I'd be like, and I'd message a follow up instantly. And then so I was probably annoying people initially, and I was annoying myself in my own head because of the ideas from it. But like I said, it becomes an obsession. But my head then goes, well, oh, this could be great because, you know, we might be part of the World Cup qualifiers. Like, how do I get there? When will they be? Like, who are we playing against? Like, we're not even there yet. We're not even members. We're not even close to members yet. But my mind just goes that further step.
Do your non-football friends and family get it?
It sounds strange. I don't really have any non-football friends. They're all quite similar. They're all either involved in it or like it at least. Family-wise, yeah. I mean, my father-in-law is American, and he doesn't really understand the game, but he was quite interested. So as soon as I said about it, he was telling me, like, he was Googling the Marshall Islands and telling me famous people that have been from there in the past and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, like, so there's an interest from both sides.
Is there anyone famous that we might know?
Not really. If you like weightlifting and bodybuilding, then in the Olympics, then maybe. The original Wednesday from the Addams Family was from there.
How long ago are we talking for the original Wednesday?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't remember, but I remember it's the original, so we're quite a while back.
Yeah, I'm thinking that must be 50s, 60s. That would be a while.
It's got to be, isn't it? Yeah.
All right. This is.
It's very surreal, isn't it?
Tangents we can go on here are endless because this is not normal. Right? This is not a normal thing that normal people do, and that's what's so remarkable about it. And that's why you're going to spark a lot of interest and a lot of jealousy as well, because you're doing something amazing a lot of people wish they could do. And so we could go on millions of tangents, but I'll ask you, how can we help? There's a lot of people listening will want to get involved in some way, will want to support the project. And basic things like social media. What else can we do?
Be a part of the social media presence. Be part of the raising awareness that we're trying to raise. We are on Twitter, so the account is @SoccerFedMI. We're on Facebook, Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, and then we are on Instagram, which is @lower_soccer, which is LOWA. And the reason behind that is there's like Polynesian, Micronesian folklore, and it links to the god that created everything. And we thought, well, God created grass, he created ocean, and this is the media guys. I can take no credit for this at all. But it was, he created soccer in the islands. So there we go. So that was that one. So lower soccer. But yeah, Twitter's the main one at the moment, SoccerFedMI. And if people do want to help out in any way, the main thing for us to grow the game is getting the game itself going. So that's kit and equipment. And like I said, without any sort of funding and membership, we are solely reliant on fundraising and sponsorship. So any businesses that want to be partners, any individuals that want to help to fundraise and donate, then you are that's donate financially or donate kit and equipment. We are open to all help that we can get.
Will there be any opportunities? Because there's a lot of kit collectors and a lot of scarf collectors.
We've been contacted by a lot, yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing those kit designs and
yeah, honestly, like I said, if people want to have a little look at the kit designs that we've got so far, and people have started their own threads, because there's nothing official. It's just all very unofficial at the moment. No, we are looking for kit sponsors. We've had a few offers. We're just not tied down to one yet. But yeah, if people want to get involved and create their own kits and what have you, please do it. I mean, we're open to suggestions.
You talk about donations or money equipment, but we talked before. There are some logistical issues, aren't there, with getting stuff?
There are. I mean, financially, we have a GoFundMe page that we will make live. It's it's live, but we'll make known. But in terms of financials, yeah, it's quite an expensive shipping cost to the Marshall Islands. So fortunately, the FA have come up with the idea of finding out if they could ship it via the US Air Base, or US military base, which would be fantastic if they can. But until that point, obviously, it'd just be a case of reaching out to our social media streams if people do want to donate, and then go from there.
Is it possible when you fly out there yourself that people chip in for extra baggage allowance and you end up taking 6 suitcases?
It could well be. I mean, we did laugh at the idea, but that probably is actually an idea. I think there's a couple of people that have done similar projects abroad, like similar in the region as well, that have done that exact thing, taken a suitcase full of bibs and cones, deflated footballs, just sent out shipping of mini pop-up goals and all sorts. So yeah, it's an idea, definitely.
I've had to do that a couple of times where I'm going to a country on a tourist visa, but I'm going to do some work.
Yeah,
I've got a suitcase full of bibs, balls and cones, and thinking, if I get stopped at customs, what do I tell them? Because
I know. What does it look like?
I'm traveling by myself here, and I can't let them know I'm coming for work. But what, am I going to go to the beach and run some circuits myself? Am I going to do a week workout of beach soccer?
It looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Yeah, I haven't actually thought of that yet, so I'll have to come across that when I get to that stage, or if I get to that stage.
Well, I'm sure out of 62,000 people, now being a technical director for the FA, you might be fairly well known. I hope they roll out the red carpet for you.
I hope so. It'll be quite nice, but I don't expect it.
Well, look, we've covered a lot here. There's so many really good things, and I'm sure a lot of people want to be interested. So before we finish up, and I'll let you get on with your day, just tell us again, where can people follow you? Where can people learn about what you're up to?
So Twitter is @soccerfedmi. Instagram is @lower_soccer, so LOWA_soccer. Facebook is Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, and then also LinkedIn. People that are on LinkedIn, it's the same. It's Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. And then I will also be retweeting and posting out a lot, and a few coaches and people that want to get involved in like referee administration and stuff have been contacting me, which is @Lloyd Owers.
This is brilliant, and it will be fascinating to watch and see how you get on. Please do keep us posted.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us on.
We want to see you succeed, because this is the kind of thing that a lot of people out there would want to do themselves. So not only have you made a lot of people jealous, but you've also gained a lot of fans in doing so. So all of the best. Thank you for coming and sharing with us, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Another cracking guest. Thank you to Lloyd for coming to speak to us. We hope that you, the listener, have learned a lot from that. These are exciting times for the Marshall Islands. Do make sure you keep up to date with the project. Give them a follow on social media. We'll post all the links on different platforms. Now, if you are looking for a job in a faraway land, make sure to check out the BFCN jobs board, and you can learn about football coaching in many different countries from the Coach Abroad pages on www.britishfootballcoaches.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.